Hey everyone, I hope you're well. This is the story about what if Naruto was detested by Leaf, had a copy bloodline and was trained by Shisui Uchiha. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. So without any further ado, let's start the what if. The group had just gotten off the tiny rowboat when Naruto let off a loose growl come out of his throat, getting everyone's attention. Naruto, Sakura began, looking at him with a weird expression. What's wrong? Naruto glanced at the pink-haired girl but shook his head. I'm irritated a bit. We've been walking on the same damn path for 2 days and nothing has happened except for those pieces of trash the other day, he spat out bitterly as if something nasty had entered his mouth. And on top of that, he glanced at Sasuke, who was glaring at the blonde for some weird reason. What the hell, Kakashi, can I go up ahead and scout? I just need to clear my thoughts, Kakashi contemplated before shrugging. What's the worst that could happen? Go ahead, but make sure you don't start any trouble, it'd be a pain to have to save you all over again. Naruto clicked his tongue in annoyance, but he quickly ran off ahead, leaving the group behind. He's so weird that Tazuna spoke, a sudden relief in his voice. He always has me on edge for some reason, Kakashi smiled at Tazuna. Yes, he and Sasuke tend to have that effect on people, he replied easily. Huh, was all Sasuke had to say. Sakura, who had been basically twiddling her thumbs the entire time on this mission, decided to speak once again. You get used to it after a month and a half, Tazuna gave the girl a pity-filled gaze. Sorry you have to put up with those two, another, came out of Sasuke's mouth. He also contemplated going up ahead like Naruto had done, but decided against it. Whenever the blonde needed time alone, stuff got destroyed. Naruto stopped running after he was 2 miles away from the group and he let out a large sigh, the excess air in his lungs slowly drifting away, rejoining the air once again. Stupid people, interrupting my fun, I should have been allowed to kill him, he muttered to himself. But on top of that, Sasuke refused to kill him too. He didn't listen to me. The hell was all that talk with, I'll follow you into hell, all those years ago for a lie? Bah, what a hypocrite, he said as he put his hands in his pockets, a glare set permanently on his face. He was about to continue ranting when he saw a rustling in a bush a few yards in front of him. He stopped and trained his eyes on the bush. Then, a large man appeared onto the roadway. He was shirtless and had 2 leather wristbands on his forearms that were of cow skin. Hide? Whatever. He had on gray striped pants with cowhide leg warmers with a pair of blue sandals. He had bandages wrapped around his face with gray narrowed eyes and a scratched out mist headband, marking him a missing ninja. From the looks of it, you're a Leaf shinobi, the man said, pointing at Naruto's headband. What are you doing out here? Oh wow, a ninja with observational skills, what a trick, Naruto muttered before meeting the man's gaze. Listen here Zabuza of the Bloody Mist, I have no intention of telling you anything, but I need to ask you something instead. I'm on a mission guarding an old man, and I already dispatched 2 other missing ninja from Mist who were after the said old man, can I assume you're after him as well? Zabuza smirked underneath his bandages. You're a bright kid, I'll give you that. Yeah, I'm after the old man, you gonna stop me? Naruto shrugged as he shifted into a fighting stance. I'd rather not fail my first C-rank mission if that's all fair with you. You're A rank, right? Or did your rank decrease since I've read the bingo book? Zabuza snarled at the insult as he took off the massive sword that was on his back like it was nothing, brandishing it as Naruto saw his reflection glinting off the blade. I'll kill you now and then get on with your teammates I guess, he said, pointing the large sword at Naruto. I hope the Leaf Village doesn't raise the pansies like the rest of the world does nowadays, the newer generation is weak. He shouted before charging. Naruto smirked as he let his eyes shift into the Sharingan as he easily tracked Zabuza's movements before he jumped in the air, landing on Zabuza's head before kicking off, making Zabuza stumble forward. Nobody is around Zabuza, Naruto said as a grin crossed his face, his hair hiding his eyes. You know what that means, right? Zabuza rose one of his non-existent eyebrows. And what does that mean, pray tell? Naruto lifted his head, his Sharingan eyes wide, an ear-wide grin on his face. It means I get to go all out with no restraints. I haven't had to do that in a long time, and I think it'll be fun to let loose. Tell me what you think when I meet you in hell, Naruto shouted as he suddenly disappeared in a burst of smoke. In his place was now a blade of grass. Replacement jutsu. With a piece of grass? How is that possible? Zabuza said as he got on guard. He heard an echo of laughter ripple throughout the air around him, not being able to pinpoint the laughter to any one spot. When one masters a simple jutsu, he heard the voice come from the trees in front of him. Then they can use it to any extent they wish. This time it came from the bushes behind him. And in the end, even a D-rank jutsu like this can be dangerous. A kunai was hurled over Zabuza's head, making Zabuza smirk. You missed. But in a split second, instead of the kunai above his head, Naruto was. Did I? He whispered as Zabuza's eyes widened in shock before a kunai was lodged in between his shoulder blade and his right arm, causing it to go slack and drop the sword. Naruto dropped on all fours and kicked Zabuza's feet out from under him, making the large man fall flat on his back as he grabbed the large cleaver-like blade off the ground, it being surprisingly lighter than it looked. "Ha, my first A-ranked kill, good!" Naruto shouted as he brought the blade down, only to meet a mysterious figure in a blank Anba mask with the mist insignia in the middle of the mask, separating the missing ninja and the blonde with just a few needles made of ice. "Zabuza-sama, run!" the voice said. Zabuza did not hesitate to take off running, making Naruto growl in annoyance. "You're a bug. Now be good and be squashed." Naruto shouted as he lifted the blade up in the air and spun around, only to meet empty air. Too slow, a voice sounded from behind him as he whirled around, grasping onto the unknown ninja's wrist, only for his Sharingan to disappear in an instant only to be replaced as ice suddenly surrounded the blonde. "What the hell?" he shouted, the familiar warm feeling spreading across his body as he saw the Anba-like figure to look at him in what appeared to be shocked, but he couldn't be sure due to the mask blocking their facial features. "I see, we will meet again in the distant future, that I can guarantee," the figure said monotonously before disappearing in a burst of water, revealing that it was a water clone the whole time. "Damn it!" Naruto shouted as he willed the ice away from him. He had lost the Sharingan and he could no longer track their chakra movements or trace their networks any longer, especially since he couldn't copy Sasuke's own Sharingan since he was too far behind. He glanced at the sword in his right hand aside, sticking it into the ground before leaning against it, waiting. At least the mission wasn't boring anymore. Plus, he got a new toy. Tazuna, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi arrived and the first thing they noticed was Naruto leaning against a rather long sword, one which Kakashi had recognized as one of the 7 blades of the hidden mist. "Where'd you get that, Naruto?" he said, his tone full of worry as he noticed fresh blood on the genin's hands. "Zabuza Momochi is weak," he said. "All I used was a kunai, a blade of grass, and the replacement jutsu." "Naruto, that's incredible," Kakashi said in a bewildered tone. "Even I would have had trouble with him, and you beat him." He looked around a little bit and saw nothing, but instead of him voicing his question, Sakura spoke. "Did you kill him?" She was divided on how to feel. The missing ninja would have been a big problem if he wasn't dead, but she also didn't want people to die needlessly. Naruto shook his head. "Nope, I injured him pretty bad though. He also has help and they have a bloodline." Sasuke rose his eyebrow. "Which one?" Naruto sighed as he lifted his palm in the air as ice suddenly spread into the air, which was turning colder by the second. "It seems we have an ice wielder aiding our missing nin." He spoke in a bored tone before glancing at Tazuna. "But whatever, I have a new toy and I would very much to get this dumb journey over with already. You know that we have to walk all the way back, right?" Kakashi said in a low tone. Naruto's eyes widened before he cursed. "I hate walking," he muttered before picking up the large sword before taking out a scroll and sealing it within. "Whatever, let's go." You would think that I'd be the one to say that, Kakashi commented. They arrived at Tazuna's house, who had offered to let them stay in the 2 guest rooms, which they gladly took them up on that offer. Now, they were eating dinner at the table, discussing their game plans. I say we don't give them a chance, Sasuke said darkly, unnerving Tazuna and Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter. We should go find their camps and just kill them before anything else. We don't know how many more shinobi are out there, Sasuke. For all we know there could be 10 shinobi stronger than Zabuza there, Kakashi said logically. So for now, I suggest we train, all of us. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, you're gonna learn something new. Oh? Naruto perked up for the first time that evening. And what's that? Maybe something I can use in the future, he said in an annoyed tone. You've been quiet all night and then you speak up when we're going to learn something. And you spit on it already? Sasuke spat out, glaring at Naruto, who only gave him a dismissive glance, but on the inside, he was seething. Where was your input, on the whole, attacking the camp of Zabuza and his friend? Or maybe relocating Tazuna and his family to a safer part, or making shadow clones to help build the bridge, huh? Why didn't you speak when it came to that? Kakashi and Sakura looked at the two, the former having a feeling that this was something deeper than just Sasuke not killing one of the Mist brothers, and the latter, who was nervous that her 2 teammates would end up fighting inside the house and wrecking it. You want my input on the whole situation, huh? Naruto said, taking one of his chopsticks and stabbing the piece of meat on his plate. I say, we go to the source of all our problems. Take out Gato. He's only a man, what can he do? He said simply and was about to continue when a child's voice arose throughout the air. You can't beat Gato. The child yelled. He's invincible, he'll just kill you all. He said, pointing at Naruto directly, who rose his eyebrow. Inari, Tsunami chastised. Don't yell at our guests, where are your manners? Well, Naruto began, his blue eyes gazing into Inari's dark brown. If we die, we're not, but if we are, then what's gonna happen to you then? You think Gato's gonna let Tazuna's family get away unpunished? Let me tell you what's going to happen if we die. He said, chewing his meat and swallowing. Naruto, Kakashi warned. Don't, Naruto scowled at his sensei, standing up and leaning on the table with his 2 hands, small crystals of ice forming where his hands were placed. No, he needs to hear this. Inari, was it? If we die, your grandpa is going to die in a rather gruesome fashion to send a message to the rest of Wave. Then, the people who were helping him build are going to die too. Then, they go after his family, not out of him scared you'll get revenge, no, just so he can spite Tazuna. And you know what he does to dear old mom? Naruto! Sasuke shouted. Don't you dare! Naruto glanced at Sasuke, and the corners of his lips tilted upwards, revealing a sinister smirk. They are gonna rape her, he said. Then, if he has any gay guys or just some weird girl with a fetish, they'll rape you too before you're sold as sex slaves. That's what's gonna happen. He shouted, ice now dispersing from around his body as he shivered with uncontained rage. So don't go around telling us that we're gonna die. Tsunami was holding her child in her arms, both had tears coming down their eyes as Tazuna glared at the table and the bottle of sake in his hands. Naruto, Sasuke spoke between gritted teeth. You, me, outside. Now. Naruto rolled his eyes as he quickly walked out the door, but not before being grabbed by the elbow by Sakura, who also had tears in her emerald-colored eyes. Why did you say those things? She asked. Why would you tear up a child's innocence like that? Naruto didn't even give her a glance of pity as he shook her off. Why should I spare a child's innocence? Did anyone spare mine? He asked rhetorically before walking out the door, soon followed by Sasuke. When the two were a decent distance from the house, Naruto stopped walking as he noticed Kakashi was walking about 5 yards away from Sasuke, just there to observe. I told you not to, Sasuke shouted. Why'd you have to do that? Who do you think you are yelling at me like that? Naruto spoke, his breath being seen in the cold air. "Don't talk down to me," Sasuke shouted as his Sharingan activated with 2 commas in each eye. "You need to be taken down a peg or 2. "Sasuke, I don't want to fight you," Naruto spoke, his voice completely calm, his eyes closed as he took a deep breath. "Why don't you just go take your anger out of a tree? Why do you have to bring everyone down? It was fine in the academy when you irritated everyone, but now you're just taking your anger out on the world for no reason." Naruto's eyes snapped open, his pupils not in vertical shape, like a snake's. "Watch your tone, Uchiha," he warned. "Do not forget who you're speaking to, or our agreement." "Screw the agreement, I won't follow your orders anymore," he shouted. "You are below Kakashi-sensei, and I won't let you order me to do something that he decides shouldn't be done." "Screw the agreement?" Naruto said. "Fine, Sasuke Uchiha, I hereby cut all ties with you, and your ties with me. We are no longer comrades, friends, nor brothers. I can no longer trust you, and for that," Naruto smirked. "I won't take you with me when I kill Itachi." Kakashi's eyes widened at that. How could Naruto deny something that Sasuke has based his whole life upon? Sasuke, however, reacted poorly to the news. "How dare you!" he shouted. "Itachi is mine to kill. Not some clanless loser whose sensei was weak and killed. He killed my entire family, I am the last Uchiha, and I alone shall avenge them." The air suddenly got cold, really cold, as Naruto's blue eyes shined throughout the night. "What did you say?" he said in a neutral tone, it just being low enough to be considered a whisper. "About Shisui-sensei? I said that he was the only thing you lost. And if he were greatest in the clan, then Itachi wouldn't have killed him. He was like everyone else, weak. Sasuke, you wanted to fight, right? To make me stop looking down on you? Okay." He stepped forward out into the moonlight, an emotionless facade on his face. "I'll oblige." Kakashi was about to interfere, but Sasuke held out his hand, stopping the copy nin from doing anything. "This is my fight, Kakashi, stay out of it." Sasuke got into his stance and awaited Naruto to get into his. After a moment, Naruto hadn't shifted at all. "What are you doing? Get ready!" he shouted angrily. Naruto saw the thin layer of ice that had covered his arm, much like all those years ago. Memories flooded in at that night, and when they passed, nothing but anger, hatred, and despair filled Naruto's mind. "I am ready," he spoke clearly. "I won't need anything to defeat you, not a special style nor my bloodline." He willed the ice on his arm to melt away back into water, it splashing onto the ground like someone had dumped a bucket right in front of Naruto. "You bastard," Sasuke glared at Naruto. "I'll teach you some humility." As he rushed forward, kunai in hand. As soon as he got close to Naruto and tried to swipe at the boy, Naruto's hand intercepted Sasuke's own in an iron grip. "For some reason, you're blind. The gap between us, it's just too large. You're outclassed, Sasuke," Naruto said before suddenly, Sasuke felt as if he were hit by a building as Naruto moved almost so fast that he couldn't see it. Sasuke flew back as he coughed a little back, laying on his back. He slowly got back up, his glare on increasing as he looked at Naruto. "What gap? You're just a loser, while I'm the heir to the Uchiha clan," he shouted, making a few hand signs. "Are you truly an heir though?" Naruto asked softly. "I mean, you can only be the leader of a clan if there is a clan. Last I checked," his eyes grew dark as he smirked. "Your clan disappeared in a single night." Sasuke's eyes widened as he suddenly filled his lungs with air as he blew out the biggest fireball he's ever created, his rage and potent chakra making the fireball ever increase. "Ha, you almost burnt my clothes," Naruto whispered in Sasuke's ear, making the Uchiha's eyes turn into the size of plates as he was suddenly backhanded into a nearby tree, Naruto not even breaking a sweat. "Like I said, Sasuke. All those spars between us were fake. I held myself back so that you could improve. What a waste of time that was, and to think I needed you to fulfill my goal in life. Now sit in despair as you realize your lifelong dream has been taken away from you with a snap of a finger. Naruto, Kakashi whispered in awe. He had been able to track the blonde's movement, but he still had incredible speed. He then narrowed his one visible eye as he saw Sasuke lying at the base of the tree, where a large crack had formed from the force Sasuke hit it with. Naruto, Kakashi said in a more firm tone. We need to talk, now. Naruto walked up to Kakashi, calm as can be. Is there something I can help you with, sensei? He asked as if he hadn't just basically cut his only friend off from his life. I know that the world hasn't been so kind to you, especially back then, but you need to show compassion. Instead of hurting others, you should try to lift them up. Learn from your own experiences and make the world a better place, only then will you ever be at peace. Kakashi-sensei, Naruto whispered as his hands turned into fists. I need to think. If you need me, just spike your chakra, I'll feel it. Kakashi looked at Naruto with his worried eye as the blonde walked into the forest. He let out a sigh as he picked up an unconscious Sasuke. Teens and their emotional bullshit, he said simply before walking into the house. What happened to Sasuke? Sakura asked in a worried tone. I heard a loud bang outside and for a second I thought Zabuza came back, Kakashi sighed. No, this was worse. Naruto and Sasuke don't seem to be friends anymore. It seems like they hate each other now, but we'll need to fix this or the whole team will get disrupted. I'll teach you tomorrow at noon since Naruto is still out there. The brat knocked out his own teammate. What a badass, Tazuna commented before his eyes hardened. But that doesn't mean he can speak the way he does in this house. I'm grateful for him helping protect me, but he verbally attacked my grandson and I will not stand for that, no matter how true it may be. Kakashi nodded to the man. I understand, Naruto is just angry about what happened earlier today. He should be fine in a day or two. Tazuna sighed before taking a swig of his sake. I sure hope you're right. He muttered. Kakashi looked at Sakura, who was torn between who to worry about. Her unconscious teammate, or her other teammate who just lost his only friend. Noticing this, Kakashi spoke. How about you go find Naruto and tell him to come on back? You should be able to lure him back with saying that I'll teach him a jutsu or two, which I'm planning on teaching all three of you. Sakura swallowed the saliva in her mouth as she stood up from her chair. Are you sure? He nodded. Naruto was calm and collected the whole time he fought Sasuke, well, except for that one part, but he was calm when I spoke to him. He finished. Sakura, with doubt in her eyes, nodded. Yes, sensei. Kakashi then glanced at the Uchiha that was slung over his shoulder. Now, what should I tell you? Sakura walked through the woods nervously, her eyes scanning the dark forest as she looked for her teammate. Naruto. She called out. She then kept dead quiet before she heard a soft whimpering, kinda sounding like someone crying. She slowly crept forward and saw Naruto looking at a small, frozen puddle on the ground as he wept freely. He was crying. This was the first time she had ever seen the boy so vulnerable, so human. Gone was the Avenger and in was the boy who had lost everything. She felt her heart go out to the blonde almost instantly, but what could she do? She didn't know him all that well, and she definitely didn't know what to say about the whole Sasuke situation. But here was Naruto Uzumaki, crying like a baby over a lost friend, no, a lost brother. Then suddenly, with her body moving on its own, she wrapped Naruto into a hug, and she felt him stiffen up as she rested her chin against his shoulder, her eyes shut as she tried to comfort the blonde. It's okay, everything is going to be fine. You're going to be fine, it's going to be okay, she whispered into his ear over and over again as he suddenly relaxed into her embrace as he cried even harder. No one has comforted him like that or told him that everything would be alright. So, he cried, releasing all the years' worth of sadness and despair he has felt. In the lonely Uzumaki, out the Avenger. And all that was left was Sakura Haruno holding a crying Uzumaki Naruto in the forest of the land of waves. Okay guys, I'm gonna teach you something new, Kakashi spoke as he looked at his 3 students. Naruto and Sakura were standing closer than they usually did, with Naruto's shoulders now relaxed instead of trying to look intimidating with his face in a neutral position, while Sakura had this small, satisfied smile on her lips, her green eyes holding a certain sparkle to them. Sasuke, however, did not have a content look on his face. He had a bandage wrapped around his forehead and he had a frown that seemed permanently glued to his face. He kept glaring at Naruto, not even bothering to hide his obvious disdain for the blonde Uzumaki. Will it help against Zabuza? Naruto voiced the question in everyone's head. Kakashi smiled. Of course, it's the only jutsu of my own creation, and since you're my first students, I'll teach it to you all. He said as if giddy to actually pass something on for once. He held up a single finger. It's an assassination jutsu. This made Naruto's eyes widen in surprise, Sasuke's eyes to narrow with a hidden glee, and Sakura's eyes to shift down to the ground with a slight mix of surprise and terror. She knew she was a shinobi, and that she would have to kill one day, but the thought still scared her. So, an assassination jutsu? Naruto asked, his eyes turning back to their normal size as a smirk played upon his lips. Good, I've been waiting to expand my arsenal, Kakashi grinned under his mask. Welp, you got the right sensei for that. I've copied over 1,000 jutsu so I can teach you anything you'd like, let it be a lightning, fire, wind, water, or earth jutsu, I have them all. This time, Sasuke smirked as he let his Sharingan activate. Good, then I can get stronger, he said, clenching his fists. He then turned to Naruto. And then, I can beat you. Naruto didn't bother looking at Sasuke, keeping his eyes forward as he looked at Kakashi. You will never beat me, and it's as simple as that, Naruto replied. Now, what's this new move you plan on teaching me? What the hell? Naruto grimaced as he looked down at his burnt hand, small sparks sparking across his hands in little blue flashes. I can't keep a straight flow of lightning going. He then glanced at Sasuke, who had just split a tree in half, having just finished the Chidori. He then looked at Sakura, whose right hand was glowing with blue lightning, but at a much smaller extent than Sasuke's. She rushed forward to her designated tree and smashed her hand into it, and to her delight, she cut off a rather large piece of the tree, but not enough to where it cut it down completely. How the hell did you guys get this down already? Sasuke smirked at the blonde. I copied him doing it with my Sharingan, making it easier to pinpoint how much chakra to put in it and how to apply to my hand, plus, you just suck. Naruto ignored the Uchiha once again and glanced at Sakura, who gave him an apologetic smile. I guess it's because I don't have very big chakra reserves and my control is good? She suggested. Naruto let out a drawn-out sigh before turning back to his hand and increasing his focus, glaring at his hand. That would make you, he grunted as lightning sparked across his hand. A great combat medic with the right training, Sakura. Her eyes widened as he spoke to her, and a faint blush painting her cheeks. You really think so? He nodded, not bothering to turn to the pink-haired Kunoichi. Yeah, being a medic requires great chakra control and I think you would rather help than harm, but I might have read that wrong, he said simply as a rather large spike of lightning chakra sparked in his palm and it traveled across his right arm, making one part of his hair stand taller than the rest. Sakura, who was beginning to feel the exhaustion of her chakra being drained, smiled weakly at Naruto, finding his whole hair situation quite funny. Nope, you're dead on. Oh, and you might want to dip your hair in the river for a little bit after, your hair is spiky, she said as she ended her sentence with a giggle. Losing his concentration, the blonde shinobi stopped the lightning as he slammed his fist into the ground. Damn! He yelled, frustrated. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, he repeated to himself over and over again, trying to convince himself as each time. Sakura let out a tired groan as she slumped to the ground, leaning on the tree she had just cut with her Chidori. Just evenly distribute your chakra around your hand, it should be easy for you, she said in a tired tone. Naruto rolled his eyes. Whatever, I have too much chakra to just do that. Sakura looked at the blonde for a minute and closed her eyes. Then just evenly distribute the chakra to your whole body and release the cutting edge, like that. Naruto's eyes widened at that sentence. But that would never work, it's an assassination jutsu. Sakura, you may have just helped me, Naruto said as he closed his eyes, feeling the waves of chakra that was inside of him as he felt his hair go back into its normal place, and for a second, he felt at peace, a nice quiet surrounding him. He infused his chakra with lightning chakra and felt tiny sparks all across his body, and he opened his eyes and he had tunnel vision, only seeing straight ahead, and he felt his legs burning from the inside, and his whole body lit up with the same sensation, just a small burning feeling that wasn't too bad to be painful, but bad enough to where it was annoying. He took a step, and he felt his whole body go forward before he stopped completely, the tunnel vision now gone as he was in a different place than where he was just a few seconds ago. What the hell, he said for the third time that day. He turned around and saw Sakura looking at him with amazement, and Sasuke was completely dumbfounded. Then, Sasuke's face twisted into one of pure rage as he stormed off. Naruto rose an eyebrow and walked the distance to Sakura, whose face hadn't changed. What's his problem? He asked. Sakura didn't say anything, she only pointed behind him. He turned around and his own eyes widened. In front of him, over a dozen trees had been practically demolished, the only thing being left were the stumps and the tiny chips of wood. He had done that. What the hell? So, you basically made a whole new version of Chidori? Kakashi asked. Naruto nodded. And it's a lot more destructive than mine? Again, Naruto nodded. The gray-haired man sighed. This is why my hair is gray, I can't deal with you little bastards. This made Naruto chuckle lightly as he rubbed the back of his head. You know you love us, Kakashi eyed Naruto with a bored glance. I wouldn't bet money on that, Naruto faltered for a second, but he just laughed a little bit more before he let out a yawn, his feet hanging off the side of the bridge that Tazuna was building with Kakashi next to him, both there to guard Tazuna. Kaka-sensei, can I ask you something? Kakashi rose an eyebrow. Sure. He answered. How'd you get your Sharingan? After a moment of silence, Kakashi let out a drawn-out sigh. Ah, now, that's a story right there. He then spoke of his old team that included a girl named Rin Noera, a man named Minato Namikaze, who would go on to be the fourth Hokage, and a boy named Obito Uchiha. Apparently, during the Third Great Ninja War, Obito Uchiha was crushed by a falling boulder that was caused by an Iwa ninja, and as a gift for becoming a Jonin, Obito gave Kakashi his Sharingan before he died when the rest of the cave collapsed. It was the main reason as to why Kakashi was now the way he was, and why he was always late, so he could honor his deceased friend, who was also always late. I see, I'm sorry for your loss, Naruto stated. I too can sympathize with your feelings, Kakashi looked at Naruto curiously. I know, and since I told you about my past, could you tell me about yours? Maybe some things about Shisui. Naruto felt his hair stand up on his neck before he forced himself to calm down after hearing that name. Every time Shisui was mentioned, Itachi came to mind, and whenever Itachi came to mind, hatred filled Naruto's entire being. He reined all that hatred in, bottling it up before he let out a sigh that was equal in length to Kakashi's own previous sigh. I can, he spoke softly. Shisui-sensei was almost like a father to me, or an older brother that I could never have. He was everything that I had, and I like to think that he thought of me like a little brother or as a son. A small, sad smile came across Naruto's lips as he spoke of Shisui and his own adventures with the year they had together. We trained together, sparred together, ate together, and he taught me so much in so little time, and in return, I let him study me and my bloodline. I remember, this one time. Flashback. Here ya go Naruto, straight from the kitchen. Shisui said as he handed the blonde a plate that had all sorts of meats and vegetables on them. Naruto looked at the food for a second before he pushed the plate away, making Shisui hang his head. Is it burnt again? Shisui-sensei, you burned the water yesterday, how could you think that carrots go in the oven and the meat in the burnt water you made once again today? Shisui seemed to only hang his head further as his depression increased. Naruto then let a grin slide across his face. But don't worry, sensei. We can always go out for ramen. Shisui looked up, meeting Naruto's sky-colored eyes with a deadpan. You've been running me dry, Naruto. I can't even keep up with your appetite. He checked his wallet and saw the thick wad of cash still there. Being an Anbu paid quite handsomely. Hey! You're the one who invited me to live with you. And I can't get a job because those dumb villagers won't let me. Shisui grinned as he held a hand on Naruto's blonde hair, causing the said blonde to pout a little. I'm just kidding, you know you help plenty enough by keeping the house clean. Come on, let's go to Ikaraku's. Naruto's face brightened up as he ran to get his shoes on, leaving Shisui there with a faint smile on his lips. Flashback end. He really meant a lot to you, didn't he? Kakashi asked. Naruto looked at the water traveling the bridge below them, watching as it flew by without a care in the world. He too wished that he could travel as freely and without a care like that flow of water. He did, he answered. Kakashi saw Naruto's mood now ruined and I smiled at the boy. Well, I hope that one day, I can mean a lot to you too. He said. Naruto looked at Kakashi with wide eyes before he turned back to the water, a faint smile on his lips. Maybe one day, Kakashi grinned under his mask. I'll hold you to that. And I shall hold you to that as well, Naruto said as he stood up, stretching a bit. I think I'm going to go switch out with the little shit or Sakura, I need a nap. Kakashi nodded. Same, but as the leader of our little group, I can't nap. Naruto rose an eyebrow. Don't you know shadow clones? Like? The ones that stay even if you're asleep? Kakashi nodded. I do, but it splits my power in half and if Zabuza decides to come back then I can't just fight him with a clone, and I'll be asleep at the house so I won't wake up because the memories transferred will seem like a dream, he explained, causing Naruto to form an "oh" with his mouth. I see, well, see yeah, I guess. Kakashi only raised his right hand, saying his own goodbye with the gesture before he watched the builders do their job. His sensei's son was sure interesting. Flashback. Please Hokage-sama, I'm begging you. Kakashi pleaded, his one visible eye pleading. Hiruzen sighed as he took the pipe out of his mouth. I cannot, Kakashi. I cannot allow the Jinchuriki to be adopted by any means. Why do you think I had the maiden kick Naruto out of the orphanage after a lovely couple wanted to adopt him? The council is already pushing me to either give him up to Danzo or just kill him, and it's against the law for a Jinchuriki to be adopted, so I have no other choice than to leave him be. We're talking about Minato-sensei's son here. Kakashi cried. We can't just let him out on the streets like this. He's practically royalty. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes at Kakashi. I will not allow you to adopt that boy and that is final. He barked. Am I clear? Kakashi grimaced under the Hokage's stare and nodded. Crystal, he said in between gritted teeth. But the moment he goes ballistic, the very second he decides to cut this village down, it will be your fault because you let him get like that. He whispered venomously. Leave! Hiruzen roared, his pipe now on the ground as he glared freely at Kakashi, who only gave him a mock bow before leaving. Flashback end. Couple days later. Naruto grinned as he sliced clean through a tree with his hand, which was emblazed with lightning, having successfully completed the Chidori. Finally, he muttered. Now I have to get that whole-body Chidori thing under control and I'll have manipulated my first jutsu, he spoke to himself. He was in the forest alone at the moment, having needed silence and isolation in order to concentrate. Naruto! He heard a familiar voice ring out. He turned his head to see Kakashi running at him, slower than usual as he approached. Head to the bridge. Now! He shouted. Naruto rose an eyebrow. Why? he asked. Zabuza is back, and he has help. And like that, the Kakashi turned to smoke. Naruto's eyes widened. Kakashi was only at half power right now. He immediately ran as fast as he could to the bridge. Sensei, Sasuke, Sakura, please be okay. Naruto arrived on the bridge to see Kakashi struggling against Zabuza and Sasuke struggling against the masked ninja. Zabuza, who no longer had his sword, was holding a thin katana in one hand and a longer and wider sword in the other, dual-wielding ferociously as he tried to cut Kakashi in two, who was barely defending with a single kunai. Sasuke wasn't faring much better, having many needles made of ice sticking out of his body. He glanced to the right and saw Sakura shielding Tazuna, her kunai in a reverse grip as she quivered in her sandals. Naruto rushed forward, taking the large sword that once belonged to Zabuza off his back and swung it at the man, who barely dodged the swipe. "Ha, you brought me my sword, great!" Zabuza shouted, grinning under his bandages as he suddenly spun in the air and kicked Naruto in the chest, sending him sliding back a little bit, his breathing a little bit uneven from the kick. "Naruto!" Kakashi shouted as he re-engaged Zabuza. "Go help Sasuke. I have my strength back." Naruto almost rolled his eyes, but relented, following Kakashi's instructions as he rushed the masked ninja that was battling Sasuke. He swung the sword on the ground, but the ice wielder dodged just in time, making the sword plant itself into the concrete. Ignoring the sword for now, Naruto hurled himself forward, using the sword's handle to propel himself further, and he drop-kicked the fake Hunter Nin, making them land on their back. Sasuke glared at Naruto. "I didn't need your help," he said between gritted teeth. Naruto didn't even bother looking at Sasuke, something he's been doing a lot more recently as of lately. "The needles in your skin say otherwise," he said simply. "Go help Kakashi-sensei, you're not needed here." "I'll handle them." Sasuke's face twisted to one of rage as he stayed put. "I'm not leaving, this is my fight," he shouted at Naruto. Naruto closed his eyes and let out a deep sigh before his eyes changed to those of the Kyuubi. "I'm not asking, Uchiha," he shouted, the dark chakra enhancing his voice. "Now leave." Sasuke took a step back in shock and fear. "This is my fight now, you're too weak." Sasuke didn't say anything, he just stood there before turning around and rushing to help Kakashi. Naruto let a smirk crawl upon his face as he looked at the now-up ice wielder. "I've been dreaming of fighting you, to test our bloodlines." The boy held up several ice needles and pointed them at Naruto. "I have honed my ice for years, you have honed yours for a week, do not try me." Naruto grinned as he held out his hand as a sword made of ice suddenly appeared in his hands. "Tell me, Yuki, can you do this?" The masked ninja's figure suddenly began trembling in what was either rage, fear, or both. "Impossible. How can you do that? That would take years upon years of practice," he shouted. Naruto's smirk only increased. "My bloodline is to copy other bloodlines and increase their power and abilities. I can only do one at a time, but it is still pretty useful," he shouted as he rushed forward and sliced through the Yuki's needles, breaking them in half before he twisted mid-air and planted his foot right at the shinobi's temple, making him smash forward and hit the bridge wall with a smack. Then, a familiar chirping of lightning could be heard. "Naruto, it's not your fault," Hiruzen told the boy lightly, but Naruto just shook his head, his hands in fists. "Yes, it is. Zabuza-sama," the masked nin shouted, fear evident in their voice. Naruto turned around and saw Zabuza held by multiple different dogs and Kakashi holding a Raikiri in his hand, a more advanced version of Chidori. "Today is the day you die, Zabuza," he shouted as he rushed forward. Naruto felt himself get pushed out of the way before he saw the masked nin grab the hilt of Zabuza's blade and throw it before quickly making an ice mirror and hopping into it. "It's all my fault," Naruto said, tears falling down his face as he fell to his knees. "Naruto," Sakura whispered, tears threatening to spill out of her eyes. This was the third time she's seen him cry. He wouldn't have wanted this, Naruto felt a hand grab his shoulder and he looked up and his eyes widened, considerably, as if he had seen a ghost. There stood Kakashi, his trademark eye smile plastered on his masked face. "It wasn't your fault," he said. A small mirror made of ice formed between Kakashi and Zabuza as the masked nin emerged from the mirror and caught Zabuza's sword mid-air and swung it horizontally in one clean motion. "Grgich," Sasuke spat out as he left the Hokage's office, slamming the door in the process. The hand on Naruto's hand faded away and Kakashi was no longer there. The sword slid cleanly across Kakashi's throat, tearing the mask part on his neck and killing him. "Good work, Haku," Zabuza stated before the dogs disappeared, their summoner no longer being alive. "Kakashi," Naruto whispered as he fell to his knees, his breathing quickening as he began spasming. Sasuke was frozen stiff, not able to move his body as shock took hold of his body, not letting go. Sakura, who had been guarding Tazuna, had dropped her kunai, tears crawling down her face unconsciously as she saw her sensei dead. "It's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault," Naruto repeated over and over again. He felt a blade at his throat and he slowly looked up to see Zabuza towering over him, his sword in his possession once again with the boy named Haku standing behind him. "You're the second most dangerous person here, so I guess I'll have to kill you and then the bridge builder," he stated in a matter-of-fact tone. Naruto then spoke, whispering something so softly that neither Zabuza nor Haku could hear. "Speak up or I'll make you watch your friends die too." "And Naruto," a voice spoke up. Zabuza looked back and saw Kakashi's one eye opened as he gazed into Naruto's blue eyes. Protect them," he whispered one last time before he closed his eyes, his chest no longer moving. Kakashi Hatake was dead. Remember, those who abandon their mission are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. Those words from that fateful day echoed in Naruto's head over and over again. Protect them being Sasuke and Sakura. He had to protect them. Protect. I have to protect them. He shouted as he stood up, forming a fist as sharp crystallized ice covered his entire arm as his eyes glowed a bright red, a three-comet Sharingan in place of his bright blue eyes before he shoved his fist right through Zabuza's chest, utterly destroying his heart. "I won't let you get away with this," he then locked eyes with Haku, who had taken a step back in shock. "With any of this," he screamed as red chakra burst from him, spreading across the whole bridge, suffocating anyone in proximity with the Kyuubi's toxic chakra. He threw Zabuza's corpse to the side as he straightened up, standing taller than before as he glared daggers at Haku, who had sunken to his knees, his purpose now gone. "Kill me, I have nothing else to live for." Naruto held out his hand and the Kyuubi's chakra melted off his hand as it crawled across the bridge, grabbing a hold of Zabuza's sword, and in a split second, the sword was in Naruto's right hand. "You'll pay for what you've done, with your blood," Naruto shouted as he brought the sword down, decapitating Haku in an instant, his head rolling across the bridge as his blood soon turned into a puddle. He then heard a small clapping as he whirled around and saw a small man in front of a bunch of thugs. "Thanks, now I don't have to waste all this time trying to have him killed, thugs are so much cheaper. But now, I'll have to kill you and your friends, then the bridge builder and his family." Naruto snarled as his vision went red. He killed all of them. "I need to go," Naruto said as he walked out of the office, leaving Hiruzen and Sakura alone. "Hokage-sama, what do we do?" she asked. Hiruzen sighed. "I don't know, Sakura, just go home and I'll think about it." Sakura bowed before she left the office. Hiruzen turned in his chair and gazed out upon the village. "Minato, why did you have to up and die and leave this all to me?" The funeral for Kakashi Hatake was dark and grim, no one spoke, no one smiled, no one touched the man's grave. There were no tears from Naruto Uzumaki, who stood there, completely and utterly numb to the whole ordeal, 3 words going through his head. "It's my fault." Over and over, that same thought went through his head over and over and over again. He blamed himself so much that he couldn't even bear to shed a tear anymore. His eyes were dry. So he watched as his teammates both sunk into their depression, both having been close to their sensei for the 2 months they have known him. The Hatake legacy was over, and there was nothing Naruto could do to restore it. He was utterly helpless. The funeral ended without a hitch, his coffin being lowered into the ground by his fellow Jonin while the Hokage said a few heartfelt words, though Naruto didn't hear him. He didn't hear anything. All he heard was the heavy rain that poured on top of his matted blonde hair. What was there to hear? What was there to see? What was there to feel? Those questions often popped up inside his brain, often making his head hurt as he tried to go back to sleep, only to wake up once again to the sight of the masked ninja named Haku slit Kakashi's throat once again. His fault. Naruto sat in his apartment, bags under his pale blue eyes as he laid in bed, unable to fall to the clutches of sleep. Protect them, Kakashi had said. But how could he protect 2 genin if he couldn't even protect Konoha's most powerful jonin? The answer was short and clear: he couldn't. He looked like he'd been through the ringer, his hair a mess. He didn't know what time it was, he had boarded up his windows, not wanting to be woken from his nightmares by the ever-blinding light the sun provided. His fault. His depressing thoughts were suddenly interrupted when a rather loud banging was heard at his door. He glanced at his front door but only rolled in bed, his back to the said door. The banging came again, this time louder, but once again, it was ignored. Then, rather unexpectedly, the door was kicked off its hinges, slamming into Naruto's filthy kitchen, scattering and breaking bowls and plates, including a few plastic silverware. Naruto didn't care too much, he just turned one more time and saw who had broken into his home. And there, standing in all their glory, stood somebody he didn't even know. Breaking and entering is illegal, you know, Naruto drawled out as he noted her appearance with a lazy, yet sad look in his eyes. She had long purple hair that reached down to her waist with dark brown eyes and a small shade of red lipstick on her lips. She had porcelain white skin with a jonin vest over a plain long-sleeved blue shirt and a pair of black baggy pants and boots on with a katana on her back. However, as nice as she looked, her eyes glared ferociously at Naruto, who didn't even bother giving her the satisfaction of looking surprised. "What do you want?" he asked in an empty tone. "I'm your new sensei, jackass, now get dressed and meet at training ground 7 in 10 minutes, she spoke in a tone that spoke, no bullshit. "No," Naruto said as he grabbed his covers and pulled them on top of himself. "I'm sick," the woman's glare only intensified. "And I'm sick of your attitude, you little shit, get the hell up before I make you get up." Naruto didn't move, but his bed began turning into ice, making the room drop several degrees colder as the woman could suddenly see her breath in the air. "You're welcome to try, but I'm going to freeze whatever you have down there shut before you can do anything damaging," he whispered just loud enough for her to hear. She pinched the bridge of her nose in frustration before speaking. "Naruto Uzumaki, you've been in here for 3 weeks, your teammates are worried about you, including the Hokage," she said, just a tone below yelling. "You are to come with me right now." "Get the fuck away from me," Naruto growled. "I'm not interested in seeing them, any of them. I don't give a damn what they think of me, or how they miss me. Fuck them. And fuck everybody else." He then heard 2 pairs of footsteps run away in an instant, and he felt his heart drop. "Great, now your teammates think you hate them," the woman said as he looked into Naruto's bright eyes. "But you're just angry at the world. How the hell would you know anything about me?" Naruto spat out, holding back nothing as venom lashed out at her with his words. "I don't know much about you, but I understand. I've lost people too, Naruto, everyone has. I lost both of my parents and my boyfriend in the Third War, you're not the only who's lost a lot." She spoke softly. "Kakashi-senpai would have never wanted this from you, he would want you to be happy and grow strong, now wallow in your own self-pity, now get up," she said as her eyes hardened. "I will not ask again." "Good, you can fix the door on your way out," Naruto replied before turning back around. He heard the sound of metal come out of a scabbard before he felt a slight prick on the back of his neck. "Get up, now," she ordered. Naruto smirked. "I thought you weren't asking anymore," he questioned sarcastically. "I'm not, I'm telling you. Get dressed, look presentable, and meet us at Training Ground 7. And if I don't, then I will personally request that you get dropped by the shinobi program entirely." Naruto let out a loud laugh. "I'd like to see you try, but whatever, I'll comply, for now." His eyes sparked red, causing the woman to narrow her eyes at the boy, but she then realized it was the Sharingan that sparkled in his eyes, not the Kyuubi's natural eyes. "What? I thought that you could only use one bloodline at a time." Naruto felt the ice in his hands form and he frowned, narrowing his eyes in slight confusion. "I guess that sensei's," he stopped talking, not able to continue. The woman's eyes softened at the boy in front of her. "Hey, it's okay. Come on, some decent training can get your mind off of these things." Naruto barely nodded. She let a small smile grace her lips as she patted the boy on the shoulder. "Good, now, get dressed and we'll meet at Training Ground 7, she whispered before she walked out of his house, leaving the broken door just lying there. Naruto arrived at the training grounds 30 minutes later, his hands in his pockets as he adorned a new outfit. It was a dark orange long-sleeved shirt that had a black vest over it that had multiple pockets and fingerless gloves that had the metal plate on the back of his hand. He also wore a pair of Anbu-style pants that were patterned with dark gray and black with some steel-toed boots to finish it off. He looked at his two teammates, who had not changed since he last saw them, and nodded. "Yo," he spoke, only to get silence in return. He frowned but didn't question it. They did hear him tell him to fuck off just 30 minutes ago. The woman who had broken into his home stood in front of the wooden pole that Kakashi used to stand in front of when he gave speeches about teamwork and such. "Hello, as you all know, I'm your new sensei that was appointed by Hokage-sama. My name is Yugao Yuzuki. I like training, spending time with my friends, and watching the moon. I dislike bullies and overcooked meat. My hobbies are polishing my kenjutsu and hanging out with my friends. My dream is to become the best in the world at kenjutsu." She then turned to Sakura. "Now, it's your turn, Sakura." "Here we go again, I guess," she replied, wincing a bit at her poor attempt at a joke. "My name is Sakura Haruno. I like studying, hanging out with my friends, ramen is my favorite food, and maybe somebody I know. I'm not sure," she said, narrowing her eyebrows at the ground. "I dislike arrogant people and those who just hurt people without reason. My hobbies don't really exist, and my dream is to change somebody and make them realize they aren't all bad." Yugao nodded. "Great, that's an admirable goal, Sakura." She then turned to Sasuke. "Your turn now, Sasuke." "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I don't really have any likes or any dislikes. My hobbies aren't anyone's business, but if I were to name one it would be training. My life goal is to kill Itachi Uchiha and revive my clan." Yugao nodded sympathetically. "I hope you succeed what you hope to do." She then turned to Naruto. "Last but not least, Naruto, go ahead." Naruto glanced at his two teammates before sighing. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I enjoy training, and I dislike weaklings. My hobbies include training, cooking and experimenting with new types of ramen, and I guess I like drawing too." It was a new skill he had discovered when he got back home from Wave when Hiruzen had asked him to try and draw Zabuza so he could confirm it with the picture he had. When he had, and with the proof of the sword, he gave Naruto the full bounty on Zabuza's head, which would last him quite a while and had given him much needed money to put a down payment on an apartment he was renting since he had moved out of the Uchiha district. "My dream? Well, protect them," Kakashi's voice rang out in his head. "Well," he said again. "My dream is to protect my comrades, and to kill Itachi Uchiha for what he's done." Yugao's eyes widened at that, including Sasuke and Sakura's. Yugao had heard that the boy was hell-bent on revenge, but it didn't appear so. Perhaps that mission to Wave Country really did change him. Sasuke and Sakura, however, were shocked at that first part of the information. Protect his comrades? Them? Why? Didn't he just say that they could fuck off? It was confusing, to say the least. Yugao clapped her hands together. Great, well, as your new sensei, it's my job to train you to get ready for the Chunin exams next month. Don't underestimate them either. I heard that it'll be a strong crop this year, she said, trying to get them excited, but failing miserably. She hung her head comically. Come on guys, work with me here, she whispered as she laughed a little. Come on, let's start with a spar, huh? You three versus me. Naruto stood up, a sword made of ice coming into his hand as his Sharingan sprung to life. Fine with me, sensei. Sasuke and Sakura followed his lead, each one of them brandishing their own weapons. Yugao smirked, pleased that it had worked. She pulled out her own sword and settled into a stance. Good, now come. You have to be kidding me. Afraid not. But why? Gives you experience against a superior opponent, 2-on-1, it should be easy. You don't get it, he's so strong. Quit complaining, Sakura, we can beat him, Sasuke stated as he gazed at Naruto, his two-tomoed Sharingan gleaming. Yugao-sensei and Kakashi-sensei trained us well. They trained Naruto too, you know, she said dryly, glancing at Naruto who sat crisscrossed on the grass in front of them. Doesn't matter, I've been diving into the Uchiha scrolls, we can beat him. Are you sure, Sasuke? Naruto spoke, laughing a little, mocking both of his opponents. You continue to believe that we are on equal grounds, Sasuke growled at the blonde before charging him, ignoring the shouts of protest from both Yugao and Sakura. Naruto let out a soft sigh as he watched Sasuke approach him rapidly. A tiny spark ignited across his body before he disappeared from sight. What? Sasuke said in awe and shock as he spun around, trying to find Naruto. I call my Kyuubi, Godspeed, Naruto spoke before punching Sasuke in the gut. It's from a manga I like. He disappeared again and reappeared a couple of feet from a coughing Sasuke, lightning traveling across his entire body, his hair standing tall and more spiky than usual. This Kyuubi is quite deadly, it grants me speed, and a rather cutting edge, literally, Naruto said, his face calm and collected. You mastered it in a month? Sakura asked, completely bewildered. Naruto nodded. She then turned to Yugao, who was entranced by the said Kyuubi. I give up, Sasuke can fight this one. Yugao absently nodded, but instead of focusing on the battle, she pulled out her sword and slowly approached Naruto. Naruto, I honestly don't know your true power. So far, I have a reason to believe that you are at least special Jonin, but you've been holding back in our spars, haven't you? Naruto froze, but reluctantly nodded. Okay, Sasuke, Sakura, get back. Naruto, I'm a former Anbu captain, so do not hold back whatsoever, use everything you got to defeat me. Naruto's face twisted as he had a small internal conflict. Should he A. Go all out and possibly hurt his sensei and friends? Or B. Hold back and disappoint them? Are you sure? Naruto asked quietly, almost timidly, surprising Yugao quite a lot, but she hid the surprise easily and nodded. Hold nothing back, or else I'll have you running laps around the village for a week straight. Naruto weakly took off his jacket, revealing a blue long-sleeved shirt. Fine, but please, don't look at me differently. Yugao then felt all her danger senses act up, screaming at her. Please. What do you, she began, but Naruto made a single hand sign and a small symbol appeared on his right arm, before fading away and a large amount of chakra kicked up, making the loose dirt and dust spread from around him, almost knocking Yugao back and successfully knocking Sakura and Sasuke back a couple of feet as the grass tried its best to stay put. Naruto's eyes shifted from light blue to a crimson red as a three-tomoed Sharingan. Lighting sparked across his entire figure violently, as he gazed at Yugao before his whole demeanor changed. A small, twisted grin appeared on his face as his limbs got all rigid, the lightning coursing throughout his entire body, his Sharingan eyes widening, revealing that his eyes were bloodshot. "Let's begin, SENSEI," he said before jumping and disappearing in a blue flash in an instant, reappearing behind her as he backhanded her across the training grounds, the woman flailing helplessly. Yugao finally got her grips as she stood still, her eyes rapidly scanning the whole training grounds. "Are you looking for me?" A small whisper came from behind her. She whirled around, ready to defend herself, only to see nothing but air and trees. "I'm over here." This time, it was above. She looked up and only saw Naruto's Sharingan eyes, before she felt a wave of dizziness took over her. "Yugao, help me!" She heard a small voice call out to her. She turned her head and saw her old boyfriend, multiple cuts and kunai lacing his body, blood trailing down his cheeks. "Why did you let me die?" he shouted. "Hate!" She shouted in a panicked tone, before rushing towards the man, only for him to fade from existence. "You're a pathetic excuse of a daughter, you aren't a damn samurai, put the sword away." She heard her parents say in unison and she began breaking down, crying as she fell to her knees. "You see," Naruto said, holding his arms out to the side as he gestured to himself. "This is me at full power, I'm Jonin level easy, and I didn't even have to use any of my ninjutsus at." He was cut off as a loud smack, courtesy of Yugao, who had tears falling down her face freely. "You went too far, Naruto!" she screamed at him. Naruto's eyes widened as the seal on his arm reappeared and disappeared back into his skin, his Sharingan disappearing and being replaced by his normal blue eyes. He whispered, but was smacked again. "No! Don't speak to me again, you will go to the Chunin exams, and if you do not get promoted then you will be transferred. Am I understood?" she screamed. Water. Ice. Cold. Akimichi. Warmth. Clothes. Winter. Death. Naruto's eyes steeled as he turned around and began walking away, ignoring Yugao's curses and obscenities. "Naruto," Sakura whispered sadly as he passed her. Sasuke, however, had a look of pure rage on his face. He didn't see what made Yugao-sensei so angry, but it must have been bad, and that was bad for the whole team. "You son of a bitch!" he shouted as he charged Naruto, only to be quickly grasped by the jaw, Naruto's hand over Sasuke's mouth as Sasuke tried to pry away, but to no avail. "Sasuke, if you try to attack me again," he looked up at Sasuke, his blue eyes piercing Sasuke's coal black. "I'll make your whole clan massacre look like a fucking joke." He then let Sasuke go and roundhouse kicked him across the training grounds. "Naruto!" Yugao shouted, angry he had assaulted his teammate. "Get back here or be charged with insubordination." "Fuck you," he said, not even bother to look at her as he put his cloak back on. "How about you go suck your boyfriend's ghost dick?" Yugao looked at him with a face of pure fury as she drew her sword and charged him. Naruto didn't move as he let the sword impale him. He let a tiny cough as blood trailed down his chin. "Are you satisfied? Do you wish to kill me? If so, you'd best do it now, you won't ever get this chance again." Yugao's eyes widened at the realization at what she's done. "Naruto!" Sakura screamed in horror at the sight of her impaled teammate. Yugao quickly took the sword out, dropping the bloody blade to the ground, horrified at her actions. "I'm so sore. Just shut up and leave me the hell alone. I'll meet Sasuke and Sakura at the place where the exam will take place. And I will make Chunin, and if I don't, then I'll request to be promoted to Special Jonin for my skills instead of a measly Chunin position." He then began walking away. Naruto walked throughout the streets, repeating what Kakashi had wished. Protect, protect, protect. He would no longer kill nor cripple the civilians, but the ninja were a whole other topic. They knew better. And he would tell them what he thought when he thought it'd be appropriate. He turned to the corner only to bump into a little kid who was sniffling and had a black eye and a bloody nose. Behind him were two of his friends, Naruto guessed. He then recognized the kid as the Hokage's grandson. "What the hell fucked you up that bad?" Naruto asked bluntly, not really caring but wanting to distract himself. The boy, who he had learned was named Konohamaru, simply pointed a boy and a girl, the boy being dressed in a black suit that resembled a cat and a girl who looked like she was too young to be showing all that skin. He patted Konohamaru on the head. Go tell your grandfather that Naruto Uzumaki is gonna go deal with a few imbeciles. Konohamaru looked at Naruto as if he were his hero, which made Naruto embarrassed to an extent but he ignored it. You got it, boss. Konohamaru shouted, giving Naruto his new nickname. Come on, Moegi, Udon. The trio ran off as Naruto approached the two figures, who wore Suna headbands. Okay, you obviously don't know where the fuck you are, or you're just so arrogant to care. You just assaulted the Hokage's grandson, congrats on the death warrant. The boy's eyes widened, as well as the girl's. Temari, the boy whispered before he burst out laughing. This kid thinks he can intimidate us. Temari let a small smirk cross her face as she put out her lip, resting her hand on it. Kankuro, maybe you should teach this one a lesson too. Naruto let a soft sigh. You obviously don't know who the fuck I am. If you did, you wouldn't be talking to me like I'm common street trash. Okay, fine, I'll educate you. A single spark of lighting was all the two could before the blonde held a boy around his age with red hair by the neck. This is your other teammate, no? Tell me, who the hell do you think you are to come into this village and act like it's yours? Gaara! Temari shouted, fear entering her system as Gaara's sand tried over and over again to attack Naruto, but as soon as it touched Naruto it just fell back to the ground. Mother? Gaara asked weakly, fear in his voice. He actually grabbed Gaara, what the hell? Kankuro said, stuttering as he watched as the blonde messed with his little brother with little difficulty. Naruto slammed the redhead into the wall, but his eyes widened as he felt a strange chakra emitting from the boy. You're a Jinchuriki, aren't you? He whispered. He then looked at Kankuro and Temari, who were too scared to actually move. He then turned back to Gaara, who had fear in his eyes as well. I was going to kill you and your friends here, but there's only 9 of us, so I guess I'll spare you. Temari's eyes widened at his words. Us? Naruto grinned as he turned his head to her, his eyes flashing a dark red with a single black slit right down the middle of it as a red chakra erupted from his chakra pores. Yes, us, you see, I'm the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, so how about you all go fuck off, before I change my mind and steal whatever tailed beast he has inside of him, okay? Temari and Kankuro were clearly terrified to their core and quickly grabbed Gaara before disappearing. Naruto grinned. Good, a supposed challenge. And for the rest of you who have decided to stay, you pass. Ibiki Marino shouted as he looked at the class in front of him. A few mutters passed throughout the class, but Naruto sported a smirk on his face. But before he could relish in his own success, a woman by the name Enko smashed into the building and quickly guided everyone out of the building and to a forest which she called the Forest of Death. This was when Naruto decided to speak. Oh wow, a forest, in the village hidden in the leaves, how scary, he drawled out in a bored tone, only for a kunai to whiz past him as he easily leaned his head to the side. He then felt a presence behind him. Cocky kids like you die first, Enko whispered in his ear, another kunai at his cheek. To Naruto's credit, he didn't look alarmed at all, but Sakura and Sasuke sure as hell did. Please quit trying to sexually harass Proctor-san, it's quite new and I'd rather not get taught by someone with a lot of experience. Enko's eyes widened at the insult but she just started laughing. That was harsh, brat. She got off of Naruto and began explaining the rules such as the Earth Scroll and the Heaven Scroll, and how you needed one of each to pass, and all of your teammates. This was going to be a walk in the park. Or so Naruto thought. Unbeknown to him, there were a total of 3 different teams looking at him, including one ninja. 2 teams were looking at him with interest and the other team was looking at him cautiously. The one person was looking at him with a certain hunger in their eyes, but they went to their respective gate without being noticed. Team 7 watched as their gate opened before they rushed forward, trying to get as close as possible to some cover from any teams that might have noticed them. They stopped at a rather large tree trunk where Naruto turned to Sakura. "Sakura, I need the scroll." She rose her eyebrow but threw him the scroll anyway. "May I ask why?" He nodded. "Then why?" she asked, feeling kinda dumb. "I'm the strongest out of the three of us, that much is obvious." She noticed Sasuke tense at his words. "So if we are to be attacked, I'm the least likely to go down." "But don't worry," he said, a faraway look in his eyes. "I'll protect you both. You won't get hurt, not as long as I'm alive." "We don't need your protection, Naruto," Sasuke said bitterly. "We're capable of defending ourselves quite fine." Naruto didn't respond, not needing to. Everyone knew that Sasuke was lying. Sure, Sasuke was at least at high Chunin level, and Sakura at low Chunin level, but they would lose to Yugao easily. And Naruto beat Yugao easily. He didn't even use Zabuza's sword, nor did he use any ninjutsu besides Godspeed. It was terrifying. Naruto pocketed the scroll and the three began moving, searching for other teams. They stopped by a small river where they got something to drink as Naruto built a small fire with the help of Sasuke, who provided a small fire jutsu to get it going. The three Genins sat in relative silence before Naruto closed his eyes. "We have some company," the fire alerted them. Sakura looked panicked and was about to put it out, but Sasuke stopped her. "It's part of the plan, we're trying to lure them here," Sasuke said, trying to ease her worries at least a little. "Are you guys insane?" Naruto popped an eye open and Sasuke only shrugged. "Never mind, you guys are insane. Why would you draw attention?" Naruto stood up, stretching his arms until a satisfying crack could be heard from his joints. He pulled out a sealing scroll and bit his finger and swiped it across the paper. "It's funny," he began. "They're Mist Ninja, so this should make them scared or quite the opposite." In a burst of smoke as it revealed Zabuza's, now Naruto's, large sword. "Come out, it's getting dark and I don't like it when people can't see me." Three shinobi from Mist dropped out from the trees and one landed in front of Naruto, another behind Sasuke, and one behind Sakura. Those shinobi behind Naruto's teammates had kunais to their throats, ready to cut them at a moment's notice. "Hand over your scroll, and the sword, the latter doesn't belong to you, it belongs to Mist." Naruto didn't move, the sword still propped upon his shoulder. After a few seconds, the Mist shinobi got annoyed. "Hey, are you deaf? I said to hand over the scroll and the sword or else your teammates are gonna die," he shouted. "I was going to let you all live, I'm trying to reduce my killing, you know. But the moment you threatened my teammates was the moment that you signed your own death certificate." In a simple, yet quick spin, the two Mist shinobi holding Sakura and Sasuke hostage fell to the ground, dead, blood spilling from their necks as a deep cut was found on their jugular. The remaining Mist ninja saw his now deceased teammates as he backed away from Naruto, whose eyes had long since turned red with anger, a straight black line running straight down the middle of his eye. "No, please, I'm sorry. I wouldn't have," the Mist ninja began but was cut off as the sword impaled him right through the chest and pinning him to the tree. He began coughing as blood suddenly came out of his mouth. "Bastard," the shinobi got out before he went limp. Naruto pulled out the sword and easily sealed it back into the scroll. He glanced at his teammates before letting out a soft sigh. "Check the bodies, if they have a heaven scroll we can be done quickly and go to the tower," he spoke. Sasuke and Sakura did as they were told, but with a sigh, Sasuke pulled out an earth scroll. "Damn it," Sasuke muttered. "We can't ever get a break, huh?" Sakura also sighed. "Seems not, but we can find a heaven scroll, we still have 4.5 days. 3 days later. "I'm about to quit," Naruto said, earning grunts of agreement from his teammates. "We haven't seen a single damn team for so long, if nothing happens I'm literally going to wipe this forest out." Sakura's eyes widened a little bit. "You can't actually do that, right?" she asked, doubting her own question. Naruto glanced at her, a smirk on his face. I can, if I amplified Godspeed enough, I'd be able to destroy this whole forest in about an hour. Sasuke rose an eyebrow. Wouldn't you run out of chakra? Naruto shook his head. The damn fox in my gut is always expanding my chakra coils to their limit each day, so whenever I wake up, my chakra coils are always just a bit bigger, and that adds on to the fact that I already had the largest chakra coils in the village by the time I was 6, so just imagine how much I have now. If you say chakra coils one more time, Sasuke let out a low warning, earning a small chuckle from Naruto, who kept quiet. A little bit later, Naruto stopped walking, causing the others to stop as well. Did you sense someone? Sasuke asked, taking out a kunai, ready to fight. Naruto suddenly whirled around. Get due, he began shouting before he was suddenly blown away by a wind jutsu, carrying him far away from his teammates before he saw what looked like a pair of yellow eyes before he landed on the ground. What the? And then Naruto was swallowed by a very large snake. Sasuke and Sakura, who had miraculously not been blown away, stood in fright as a rather tall man with green eyes with black slits going straight down the middle of them. He had on a tan tunic on with a purple rope acting as a belt of some sort that seemed to keep the tunic on with the basic shinobi sandals that most shinobi wore. Kukuku, it seems your protection has been blown away, quite literally, he said, sounding like a snake. But, in all honesty, I'm not after either one of you. I've been tailing you all for quite some time and I saw the boy's reaction when his teammates were in danger, and I relish to experience that firsthand. So, I'll beat you both senseless until he arrives. Sasuke got in front of Sakura, who also held a kunai, but was filled with fear. You aren't going to beat either of us senseless, Sasuke shouted before he threw his kunai at the snake-like man, who dodged it easily but was suddenly engulfed in a ball of fire. Sakura, run! Sasuke shouted. Somehow, he knew that the man wasn't dead, not yet at least. Sakura steeled herself as she shook her head. No! Those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum. Sasuke's eyes shifted into its Sharingan state as a smirk crossed his face. Fine, then let's kill this bastard. His right hand was suddenly enveloped with lightning, the same as Sakura, as they both charged the man, who appeared unscathed from the fireball. Chidori! They shouted in unison, but they suddenly felt a hand grab their hair and throw them into a tree, the Chidori in their hands now gone. Oh, is the Kakashi Hatake's move? It's a shame, he couldn't hit me with it either. He suddenly appeared in front of Sasuke and Sakura and began beating on them both at the same time, turning them into a bloody pulp. And in what seemed like hours, but was just a couple minutes, the man stopped. I don't necessarily get my kicks off of beating children, but if it means fulfilling my goals, then I'll do it anytime. He grabbed Sasuke and threw him on the ground, leaving a bloody Sakura unstuck in the tree, her form causing a dent in it where she laid, unconscious. Let's get started then, shall we? The man said before he began beating on Sasuke more and more, each passing minute his strength only increasing with his punches as annoyance began getting a hold of him. Where the hell is he? He asked rhetorically, knowing Sasuke was too beaten to actually speak. He let out a long sigh. Looks like I'ma have to kill you both, show him your corpses, and then fight him. Whatever, if it gets the trick done then I have no qualms. He took out a kunai and threw it at Sakura, but it was suddenly blocked by a very bloody and slimy Naruto. How dare you? He asked, barely being able to keep his rage in check. The man let go of Sasuke as the Uchiha flopped to the ground, finally unconscious. Hello Naruto-kun, my name is Orochimaru. Now, shall we fight? Naruto gently picked Sakura's almost dead-like form and gently laid her on the grass. He then turned to Orochimaru, his whole body shaking, his Sharingan activated, but instead of the middle pupil, it had turned into a long slit, making his Sharingan look wild and untamed. You, bastard, how dare you? How dare you? His voice was completely consumed with anger and rage. His fingernails then turned into claws as his canines suddenly sharpened to the point where they could have pierced steel with ease. You heartless monster, you'll pay for this. Ice began forming around Naruto as the moisture in the air suddenly solidified and turned to ice as it formed into tiny needles that floated effortlessly around Naruto. You'll pay for this. Electricity bubbled around Naruto with an intensity that even made Orochimaru take a step back. You'll pay for this. A light purple chakra formed around Naruto, a mix of the Kyuubi's chakra and his own. Naruto locked eyes with Orochimaru's pleased eyes. I will make you suffer. He then disappeared from view, but Orochimaru didn't even look the least bit scared. He then reappeared above Orochimaru, a bright ball of lightning in his hand as he swiped at Orochimaru, but the man just dodged it just in the nick of time. But the trees that were in Naruto's path were suddenly turned into nothing but ashes as Naruto ran around at superhuman speeds, his eyes never leaving Orochimaru's predatory look. Again and again, he would attack, but Orochimaru would always evade, but even Orochimaru would take a few scratches, a thin trail of blood traveling down his cheek as his smirk only grew. Naruto then appeared in front of Orochimaru once again, but this time, the seal on his arm had appeared as he began muttering. I have to protect them all, sensei. No, sensei said, Shisui. No, Kakashi, dog, his dog, dogs. He muttered nonsense as he developed a grin on his face, his Kyuubi-enhanced Sharingan widening as he began shaking uncontrollably. I have to, the ice, the Akimichi, the orphanage, I have to kill, copy, I have to copy everything, do it, just, ice, water, winter, everything, it's so twisted, Shisui. Are you there? No. Orochimaru began laughing. A seal that appears whenever he wants to go all out, but makes him insane. His grin turned into a crazed one as well. Good. I have to protect them, all of them, everyone. He rushed forward towards Orochimaru, but he suddenly found a foot in his face as he was kicked across the ashes of the trees he had basically electrocuted down. Welp, I've seen enough, and I am quite pleased. As a reward, Orochimaru's neck suddenly sprouted as his fangs struck Naruto's skin, a mark appearing on Naruto's neck. You'll come to me willingly, one day at least. I'll heal your friends just enough to where you don't get killed when you are knocked out, goodbye. And like that, Naruto's vision blurred out before it went completely black. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed this what if and want to see next part of it, comment down below and let me know. Also share this video with your friends. See you in the next video. Peace.